which is now on its third woman Prime Minister. It has a young woman Prime Minister at 37 who has attracted a lot of interest because she's just had a baby and she's taken parental leave. And this is seen as very inspirational for younger women because it's saying, you know, you can have a career and have a family. And so often women have felt they've had to choose between the two. So this is quite an exciting time for our country. We've had 3 women Governor-Generals as well. We have a Queen in New Zealand, like Canada has a Queen, who's also a woman, by the way, very long-standing Queen. But we get to appoint Governor-Generals, and and Canada has also been very forward-leaning on appointing women Governors-General. We've had woman Parliamentary Speaker, the Cabinet Secretary, very long-standing woman Chief Justice. Women have been mayors of all the major municipalities and many of the minor ones, you know, and actually have held the top office in just about every professional association one can think of, chief executive of this company and so on. And this year we're actually celebrating 125 years of women winning the right to vote in New Zealand, 1893. Many countries are celebrating the centennial this year, but we're celebrating 125 years, the first country in the world where women achieved that milestone. But that underlines a point that had to be voted on by an all-male parliament. So we need male allies to get any progress, actually. And great to be on the panel with a champion and ally, a Canadian ministerial friend. So it seems to me that the legacy of women's exclusion for so long in so many places where decisions are made is really the background of all the sad facts and figures that you began with, Laura. You know, to these very substantial gender gaps in the economy, for example. I mean, 3/4 of all the unpaid work in the world is done by women. In fact, I was in Nairobi, it was 2 years ago, for the launch of UNDP's Africa Human Development Report, which had a methodology and calculations leading to the conclusion that every year Africa is losing $95 billion GDP from gender inequality. So it's a no-brainer to empower women to have equality within our economies. And we were talking earlier with Scott, I think there's a figure produced by UN Women in conjunction with McKinsey's that says probably you'd add 12 trillion a year to world GDP if you had gender equality. And remember, you know, the words Hillary Clinton used, they're not original, but they need to be applied constantly to this. You know, gender equality is not just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do, because everybody's missing out because we don't have gender equality. Now, the World Economic Forum does a global gender gap report every year, and the one for last year struck actually a sober note, because it said they had charted a regression on the move to gender equality. And the projections they made suggested that on current trends, it will be 99 years before we see gender parity in the world's parliaments. And I always say, ladies, do we want to wait 99 years? I don't think so. And they put a figure, and I think I'm right in saying 217 years to achieve gender equality in the economy on current trends. This is simply not acceptable. Now, of course, OGP cannot tackle all these issues specifically, but what it can tackle is inclusion, diversity and voice across all levels of decision-making and inputs into decision-making. And I underline the inputs and inclusion in decision-making because OGP is just so strong on civil society voice and inclusion. And the reality is, as has been said from Canada, when you include women in decision-making, the whole tone, the nature of the decisions, the perspectives that come to the table, it just changes. And there's evidence from around the world, for example, that when you begin to get a critical mass of women in parliaments, the issues parliaments start debating change. You know, issues that were never considered important but are highly relevant to women, like the treatment of domestic violence, the treatment of the single parent trying to cope alone, who's usually female. These issues come onto the agenda. There were very good examples from India, where for quite a lot of years now, at that most basic community council level of local government, by law there must be 30% women. And when that happened, the issues that the local council started advancing changed priorities too, because the women wanted water and sanitation dealt with, which the men had never thought was so important because they didn't have to walk for the water, right? But they were more interested in things they could pose alongside for a photo of, you know, New Bridge or whatever, which is not unimportant, but the women wanted some basics addressed, so the discourse changed. So I think that very excited about the gender equality focus that Canada will bring to OPG chairing the summit next year. And I think there's the opportunity to really push on the inclusion of women in all levels of decision making, because it will change the outcomes for women. It's not it may not change all these adverse trends and get to gender equality in a decade, but it'll get the momentum that'll get us there.